There's a lot of people right now, I think with the pandemic and all the craziness, a lot of people are looking for different opportunities and they're considering aircraft maintenance. So if you have anything you want to add, I guess, to yeah, someone considering just aviation period, I guess, as a career.
My thing considering aviation as a career is definitely don't look at it as a job. This is something that you need to sit down and think about and go, am I going to be okay if anything I do happens to cause any harm? Because this is a job where, and I hate to be frank about it, but it really mistakes are not allowed. You can do a task 100 times, guaranteed to mess it up 10. You got to be willing to take responsibility for your work. You can't just look at it as a job. I come in on the clock, I punch in at 8, I punch out at 4:30. This you have to want to develop it as a passion. Let that reflect in your work, because there's a difference between that guy who punches in on the clock at 8 and then out at 4:30 versus the guy who comes in and looks at it and wants there and wants to work on it, wants to gain that experience and knowledge. Because at the end of the day, you're working on a machine that Murphy's Law applies to, whether if it carries one body or it carries 100. You got to be ready for any outcome, and you've got to be passionate about what you do. Because at the end of the day, you're taking care of a machine that somebody else is either relying on because it's what they want to do, it's a hobby, or it's the way they make their money. You've got to be ready, and you've got to want to do this, because you can't just walk into this job and expect to just punch the clock and go home. You can't do that.
Introduce yourself and give us a little rundown, and we can kind of go back and talk a little bit more, I guess, about those environments.
I was fully certified A&P in May of 2016. Straight out of A&P school, went right to 121 World. I worked for carrier for right at about 2.5 years. I stepped up from a mechanic to a supervisor within about 8 months of being in the position, just because I excelled really well at that particular area working. I left long after my tenure there because my heart really always wanted to be in GA. So I went back over to the GA side, and the shop I was working at the time was a lot more focused towards business jets, turboprops. So I ended up working more or less the 35 stuff, the charge operation aircraft. They weren't, everything was out. I was doing a little GA stuff here and there, and I kind of wanted to branch away from that. And I've bounced around between a couple of different shops, mainly because different areas provide you different experience. And I've been in GA pretty much ever since. I got my IA 2 years ago and been doing the whole, knocking animals out every chance I get. But my experience has been on the GA world. I've worked on everything from J3 Cubs to helicopter.
It's cool to have that variety there. I've personally never worked in helicopters, but yeah, that's quite the variety. That's a good opportunity. It kind of gives you an idea of, I guess maybe to find out what you like best, I guess. I mean, that might.
It does. It lets you, the way I've gone about doing it, it allowed me to get experience in just about pretty much put my hand in every cookie jar, so to say. Figure out, okay, well, I like this, but I really like doing this because I get to fly. I get to be more one-on-one with the aircraft and the owners that I deal with versus, working on an airliner where you do your work, you sign your logbook off, or you sign your discrepancy sheet off, and then you don't see it.
So you like more of the relationships for yourself, more of like relationship, one-on-one, actually getting to know the person flying the plane and actually owns it and developing. It's more a relationship at that point, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
And it's always nice, especially like I just finished up a G5 HSI installation in a mall. And to see the owner's eyes just light up with just how thrilled and ecstatic he was over the whole installation, hearing about everything that happened during the annual, like, okay, let's go on a test flight. And just, watch his eyes light up, just how happy he is with how everything, works like it's supposed to. It's more of a joy, and, it's kind of like an attaboy. And I enjoy anything.
So, what would you say, just going back a couple steps here to say like the 135, like a charter operation, what are some things that you liked, if there was anything that you liked about it, and then maybe something that really wasn't along the lines of your favorite?
The 135 operation, they're really similar to 121 in that, you're dealing with paying customers. A lot of times you're dealing with big turboprops, or you might have a Baron or a Seneca 2 for that matter. You're dealing with an aircraft where you're operating it essentially very similar to a 121, where everything kind of flows the same. Still got the MEL list that you got to go by. You can defer everything else. But 121 world, the passengers are going to see the mechanics working on the airplanes every now and again. In the 135 world I worked in, you are kept kind of out of sight, out of mind. You're the last person that gets told about anything going on with the airplane. And if there's something wrong, the 135, granted, now 121 is like, okay, let's get the airplane fixed. Let's go. The 135 world is more the lines, especially like when you've got guys that are renting Hawker 900s or Gulfstream G150s, G200s, whatever the case may be. They're paying big bucks. It's hurry up, get it fixed.
I see.
There's no real line, taking time, just being non, get it done. You've got to have that mindset. You've got to be quick on the draw, know what's going on, and be 100% right every time. Because 9 times out of 10, when the airplane breaks, it's usually when the paying passenger just stepped on the airplane and wanting to know, can we leave?
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I've actually here recently, I've heard a little bit about that kind of the same scenario of, a big fleet, as far as a charter fleet and a big operation where, a lot of the stuff, I'm not going to mention any company names, but, a lot of these companies, you have a share, you have so many hours a year, and, you expect to have an aircraft like basically at your door, so to speak. And there is a lot of pressure behind that type of environment. I definitely I've heard that before. So it sounds like that's something that if somebody is looking at opportunity to maybe start 135 because that's available at the time or whatever makes sense, maybe their location, that they should be aware going into that. I guess being aware of that would be helpful. I mean, versus when you get there and being surprised.
Oh yeah, kind of a big surprise. One company I worked at, we had 2 Hawker 900 XPs, 2 Gulf, 2 King Airs, 2 Beach Jets, the Premiers, and we had a couple of Citations, and then along with a Sovereign. And we had a pretty decent sized fleet, and it was 2 of us that worked all of that. And you've really got to be on your game. And the very first time something happens and the owner of the company has to walk out to the paying passengers and go, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can switch you to something else," and they're mad, it's generally a good day for you. And as a new mechanic, that knocks like every bit of motivation just gone.
Yeah, I can imagine. And that might not be for all 135s, but it sounds like it's very common because, like I said, I've heard the same thing recently. So yeah. So if anyone's interested in 135, do your homework, and not that it's not a good opportunity to maybe get your foot in the door and get some good experience, but just be aware of that going into it, and don't let the I guess stress of it or just be extra careful and just make the best of it. Really, it sounds like professionals should always be learning, and this field is no exception. And I think, like you said, taking responsibility of your work. If things do happen, like you said, you can't make mistakes, but unfortunately things do happen. But when things happen, you got to own up, you know.
And then back to the basic principle of how we as humans work. We learn by making mistakes. And I'm not going to say that we're perfect 100% of the time. God knows I've fried a $40,000 computer because I got a wire pinched, in a Gulfstream G150. But it happens. The thing is you catch it. You develop the mindset and go through and get the routine of looking at stuff and double checking and everything. You're gonna make a mistake. Whether or not it makes it out the door is up.
Just you can't do it again. You got to learn from it and move on.
Yep.
For sure.
You
Yep.
got to be in the airplane, look at him and go, yep, I fried this. And they go, what are you going to do about it? I'm going to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Cool. That's a good stuff, Michael. I appreciate it. So I just want to give a quick thank you. If you're still watching, I appreciate your time. And until next time, be safe and be blessed. And feel free to leave a comment.